important. Now, there's a more insidious issue here, though, and I hope it's not at play. Stats Canada demonstrates growing equality in our country over the last number of years. I'm hoping that the Prime Minister isn't trying to prevent Canadians from knowing about growing inequality so that we don't then have to bring in programs to address equality.
So are you suggesting that maybe it's a desire to not finance social programs that's sort of behind it?
Well, who knows? I mean, why would you not want to know the truth about ourselves? I mean, it's a little like going to the doctor and saying, I don't want you to give me a blood test. I don't want you to test my pulse. You know, just ask me how I'm feeling. Well, that's not how you come up with the best possible strategies. Right. Of course, asking how you're feeling is a part of it, but you need some data. And we've got some of the best statisticians in the world. I get 1,000 times more complaints about parking in my riding than I've ever had about an obtrusive census, because I've had none about an obtrusive census, ever.
Okay, but you know, there's been a lot of voices that have come out and called for the Prime Minister to reverse this decision, and now you're adding yours. What makes you think that he's going to come down from the hill of Harrington Lake and talk about it with you? This is something the government seems very committed to. They think this is a good idea.
Well, I think it's an ideological kind of attachment to a certain view of government in general, that it somehow is bad. So we have this irony of the leader of our government somehow believing that government itself is a negative. Governments can have their negative aspects, but they also have our positive aspects, and those are where we have to build.
Is it that he thinks government is bad, or that he thinks government is big? Conservatives are knowingly want to make government smaller, and this might be part of it.
Well, I'm not so sure. They're having to spend more money now to try to convince people to do something voluntarily that they were actually already doing before. I mean, this is one of the strange features of it all. And so what I'm saying, though, is, look, we're prepared to do some compromising. If there's some changes that can be made to get this thing sorted out quickly, let's try to reach across the party lines and see if we can't solve this matter.
But I guess what I'm saying, do you see any sign of that? Because I certainly don't.
Not yet. But then again, a couple of years back, we saw no sign of movement on helping out the unemployed. It looked like we were going to have an election, and then suddenly, you know, we had our meeting, and there was $1 billion for tens of thousands of families that helped them through the winter. It surprised me as much as it probably surprised anybody else. So I'm hopeful that cooler heads will prevail. We'll get this thing sorted out, because there's a lot of important issues before us right now. We've got a climate change crisis, the evidence for which keeps piling up. We have a bill on climate change locked in action in the Senate, even though it's passed twice through the House of Commons. The Senate has got to address this. We need to have a serious discussion about these serious fundamental problems we're facing.
But just back to the Prime Minister, this isn't a guy that tends to back down. Maternal health, whether to include abortion or not, he went one way, he made a political decision, stuck to it, and like it or not, that's what he did. He stuck to it. And on this one, it seems to be the same way. Why would you think that he would back down now?
I'm not sure. I remain ever hopeful, but I do think it makes sense to try to find a resolution, and I'm saying we're willing to be part of it.
Okay, good. Thank you, Jack Layton. Good
Thanks.
to see you today. Appreciate your time.